Hello, welcome to the first episode of this segment we call Hashtag Mental Health Matters. And I've been an advocate of mental health ever since I experienced these kind of hardships. And I knew what it feels like to face all of these struggles alone. So hopefully, this segment I'll be making will actually enlighten your current situation, especially during this pandemic, and hopefully, this segment will encourage you to take little steps to lead yourself to becoming a better version of yourself, especially when it comes to your mental stability or your mental health. And hopefully, these tips that I will be sharing throughout the segment will actually be as effective to you as it was to me. I know that experiences differ from person to person, but I do hope that these tips will actually help you in so many ways, not just for your mental health, but for your general well being. So, for this first tip I will be sharing with you, is actually the most effective activity for me throughout my healing journey. It actually became a big factor as to who I am right now, and I am still doing this activity as of today. So here's a little backstory of mine during my quarantine experience. So these past few days, unfortunately, it was consecutive days, I wasn't mentally stable, and I would admit that. I lost my progress on forming my habits, like working out, my skincare routine, and reading. I got stuck in the middle of my thoughts, and I don't know where to start anymore, so I ended up doing nothing. I felt like I went back to rock bottom. So there were articles popping up telling me these are the certain ways to cope up with anxiety, with depression or stress or something like that. All that I see are things that are still tiring to do or actions or activities that will require you to move and think more. Which in our case, even thinking about it makes us tired. It's not that we are lazy, but what we are looking for is something that will not require that much energy since we are not in the perfect mood in the first place. I knew that in the first place, my thoughts are messy. And it's one thing that we cannot avoid when we're not mentally stable. And the first thing I thought of doing is to write them down. There's no harm in writing them down. No need to place drawings, doodles if you don't feel like making them down. What's important is that you had the opportunity to write them and to take note of them. And so, because of that, my habit of journaling started, followed by the habits I lost from the past days. So, for this episode, I will be sharing my thoughts about journaling and how it became effective to me. As I said earlier ago, it was the biggest factor of my healing journey, and later on, I would explain why. Journaling does not necessarily mean that you're to place doodles, calligraphy styled words, use washi tapes, and highlighters. Always keep in mind that your thoughts are more important to be placed. And if you feel like being creative, that's when you'll consider placing other things as long as it serves its purpose to ease and distresses you. Other people prefer to be creative when journaling, since it expresses more their thoughts that words cannot. My journaling system includes date and time, since sometimes I have an attack around 2 a.m., so I have to take note of it. And the thoughts, like everything, I only use pencil and not anything else. If I feel like placing doodles, then I will do, but rarely. I prioritize writing my thoughts in a very detailed manner, even my expressions during that situation. My journal looks dead since it's all words, but What's important is it served its purpose to organize my thoughts, identify what I truly feel, release what is bothering me, and other thoughts that messes up my mind. Since I do not require my journal to be as creative and colorful as it should look like in Instagram accounts or Pinterest boards, I only use a plain, not ruled, not dotted notebook I got from excess souvenirs from a school event. The pencil I used was a gift from my colleague when we had our exchange gift giving during a Christmas party. So technically, I did not spend any amount of money just to fulfill my journaling habit. And what's important is that I had enough resources for me to execute this habit. Even with these simple items, this too serves its purpose and helped me throughout my hardest times. If you're still starting to enter the habit of journaling, you don't have to pressure yourself that you use expensive notebooks or pens. If you want to, then do as you please. But for the sake that it should look pretty since others will see it and just because society tells you so, then I encourage you to start as minimal and basic as you can. The simpler, the more effective your journal to you. I would admit, sometimes I want to invest in using well known stationery brands to upgrade my journaling habit, but I do not pressure myself that I should have one these days. As long as I'm contented with what I have right now and it continually serves its purpose, then I'm still good. If you want to start journaling these days and you want to spice up its looks, I recommend some items that you can invest on. Disclaimer, these items that I'll be mentioning are not sponsored. The first stationery brand that I would love to mention in this podcast is Notebook Therapy. Notebook Therapy are one of the stationery brands that I adore when it comes to cute lineup of notebooks. Their designs will make you want to be creative and make the most out of it. I recommend the Our Story Begins Planetary Collection Notebook, and you can avail it through their website at notebooktherapy.com. This last item that I would love to recommend to you, and one of the best highlighters I used for journaling, even with my planners, and I got the opportunity to have one, is the Zebra Mild Liner highlighters. I purchased them through Shopee, which cost me around 300 plus, not including shipping, depending on the store where you're going to buy. I had my highlighters on warm pack. You can also avail them on selected national bookstore branches here in the Philippines. So, how did journaling become the biggest factor of my healing journey? Years ago, I struggled to bottle up my feelings, emotions, thoughts, and it was tough knowing that I have no one to talk to regarding these matters. Until one day, I had enough courage to establish the mindset that I have to bring myself back on track again. I felt that I had enough strength to start even with a little progress. Internet was the only thing I can rely on to help me with researches. There were helpful articles popping up, but what made me caught my attention was how minimalistic some activities are, one of which was journaling. It was one activity I felt that I didn't need to pressure myself to accomplish. Journaling was a basic thing I perceived before, but I found ways on how my journaling habit will be more effective to achieve mental stability and a better mental health. I discovered techniques and reformulated them so that it will achieve its maximum efficiency to me. These techniques help me to address certain situations when it comes to dealing with my emotions and how to avoid them in the future. I will be sharing to you my journaling techniques on my next episode of Hashtag Mental Health Matters. I hope that I was able to encourage you to journal during this crisis and monitor our thoughts and what we feel as we become overwhelmed with the things happening. especially in our country. When we feel that we have no one to share our thoughts and sentiments, especially these days that we are practicing physical distancing, journals will be our best friends. This is Jen, reminding you that life is better with coffee and sunrise, and I hope I will see you in my next podcast.